Or panelists on the line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, welcome. Once a month or so, eClass for Learning puts on informational webinars on how to use the various software that we sell. And this month we're going to talk about Totara. And today we're talking about Totara competencies and organizational roles. And those are important things to understand, especially for pushing out learning to different groups and also for pulling back reporting. So it's very nice to get under the hood and understand those things. eClass for Learning is a Totara solutions provider. We are a full solutions partner. We can provide the Totara software. We can host the software for you. We provide onboarding and support services, theme customization services. We can customize the platform and build new plugins or APIs to connect to other systems if you need it. And there is a very robust report builder in Totara that we showed last month. And if you were unable to make that webinar, let me know and I can send you the link to the archive. But if there's something in there that you are unable to access, we can actually build a custom report for you. Although there's quite a lot you can do in the report builder, and maybe we can just help you understand how to get that out of the report builder too. We develop course materials. We can set up e-commerce options for you, and we also provide end-user support for organizations, things like loss if people call in and I can't find my password, things like that. So we're pretty busy here at eClass for Learning doing a lot of services. My name is Dr. Tammy Frame, and I am the Chief Education Officer at eClass for Learning, and this is my contact information. We are recording today's webinar, and all of you that signed up will get a link with the recording of it. And my contact information will be on the email as well. And so if you think of questions beyond this webinar that come up, feel free to send them my way and I'd be happy to help you out. Today we are using GoToWebinar as the platform for our webinar. There should be an area called questions, and you can type any questions throughout. I typically put everybody on mute because sometimes when we get bigger groups we can get a lot of background noise from different offices and such. So if you do have a question, I really welcome those. It makes the webinar a lot more fun and a lot more applicable to people, and it's great to have real use case scenarios. So please, at any point in the webinar that you have a question, feel free to type one in there. I think that makes it a lot more fun. Okay, with that, I'm going to get rid of my PowerPoint and we're going to actually open my Totara instance here. And I had 3 bullet points in the description for today, and I'm just going to go through those in order. So the first question I had is, do you have a variety of roles and permissions that need to be set up in your learning system? Perhaps you want different people to have different permissions to do different things on the system. Maybe different people with different roles, you will push out learning towards them, or you want to pull reports on those different roles and permissions. We're going to get into positions and how your organization can be mapped out and structured in a little bit too. But Totara has some built-in roles, so we're going to start there. And again, you can push and pull by any of the things that I'll be showing today, and these are customizable. So when working with roles, typically that is set up by the site administrator, and one of the roles is in fact a site administrator. They have the highest level of permissions. And a site administrator can go to site administration, and they have a whole tool set of things that they can do. And by the way, eClass for Learning can do site administration training for your site administrators. We do that virtually if you're interested in that too. So under users, it's pretty intuitive. We have under accounts, actually I lied, under permissions is where we can see the roles. And let's just look at what are the out-of-the-box roles that Totara provides. So we talked about the site admin, which I'm logged in as now. They have the ultimate rights to do everything. But in addition to that, out of the box is a site manager. They can access a course, modify them, but they usually don't participate in courses. So they might be a technical support person. They may not have rights to like security settings that the site admin might, but they can help correct things in courses. A course creator can create new courses. An editing trainer it would be like the teacher or the instructor of a class. You can also have a trainer, and they can't alter any of the activities in a course, but they might be a facilitator. They might answer discussion boards, they might grade, they might comment on things learners are doing, but they can't change the content. Then you have your learner or your employees that are taking the course. A guest. So guest users kind of have read-only privileges if you assign somebody to be a guest. Maybe somebody is reviewing a course and you really don't want them to be able to upload things or enter discussions, but maybe they just read them. So a guest has read-only rights. All logged in users are considered an authenticated user. So a person can have multiple roles, and they can have different roles within a course, and we'll get into that in a minute. You could just have logged in users on the front page. The staff manager may be looking at the performance of a learner or team, and they are going to have the My Team tab that allows them to drill down and look at their employees. An assessor might not be an instructor, but they may be assessing the performance of a learner. So if the learner has been assigned different competencies, maybe you have assessors who maybe they're doing observations, can mark on a scale that has been set up in Totara where they fall. Regional managers are responsible for performance of a region, and they would have access to regional reports. And a regional trainer then they would oversee training of a region. So those are the out-of-the-box roles and permissions. Now under here, you can add a new role if you want. And when you do that, they usually have you start by copying one of the existing roles, and then you can name it, and you can decide what permissions that would have. And so sometimes when we're working with onboarding our clients, there is a reason to create another role other than the ones that Totara provides. Okay, you can also delete ones if you're not going to use them. Then there are some tabs along the top that show who can add other roles. Okay, so the site manager has quite a few things that they can assign and do and what they can share. And you can check if you want to give more permissions for other roles to be able to assign things to other people if a role override or a role switch. Okay. Each role has associated with it permissions, and if you go to the pencil, this says what the person in that role can do. And when we go here, and right now, you'll see that a lot of the things are unchecked for this particular role. The site admin would have everything checked. And here we're getting to some of the things like they can archive a certificate. Now over here, they have any risks that would happen if you allow that. If there are any risks for that role and you allow that, what are the potential risks? Okay, and this is quite long. You can click and unclick any of the permissions that you want. Sometimes clients come to us, our clients, and say, well, I want to modify a role, and we typically recommend that we help them with that because it's a real time suck to kind of go through all of these and try to find the permission that you want. And you may not know what the names are or the keywords to search for. One of our instructional designers is brilliant at this, and she knows exactly where everything is, so we usually give it to her. Her name's Sue, and say, Sue, they want this permission for this role, or they want a role created that does this. When you modify a role, a best practice that we recommend is that you create a new role and copy it, like pull down Site Manager, and change your permissions in the new one, like you might call it Site Manager New or something like that. That way you always have a copy of what the out-of-the-box permissions were. And because if you ever decide to revert back for some reason, maybe the new permissions just aren't working for you the way you thought, it's hard to remember where they were, how it was before out of the box. So kind of what we always do is, even if you want to change permissions to an existing standard role, we recommend that you just copy it. Then you always have the original out-of-the-box permissions if you ever need those. And that's worked pretty well for us. Now, how do you assign who has what roles? You could do a CSV upload, or you could use Active Directory or the HR import, and you can have all of those set up, and we help with all of that. We do have some system integration specialists that can set up all those automated ways of getting everybody's roles in. But there are some manual ways you can do it too. So first of all, if you wanted to add a site administrator or remove somebody as a site administrator, that's under Site Admin, Users Permission, Site Administrators. And on the right side, we have everybody in the system. You click on who you want, and you would just click Add. And if we wanted to remove someone, you would click on them and click Remove. I recommend that you be very careful about who you have your site admins. You always want to have more than one person. That way, if somebody's at a conference and some setting needs to be changed for some reason, you have a second person who could do that. But I also recommend that you don't have too many site admins. They have a lot of rights. They can do a lot of things on the site, and you just don't want too many people overriding things like security settings and so on. So a lot of times in organizations, the site admins often tend to be the IT staff, okay? Oftentimes. And that's why there's like course creator roles and other things for instructional designers and things like that, and what they can all do in the system. And then remember too, you can push out learning for any role too. So like if you wanted a training for all regional managers and you assign somebody that role, then you can push out learning in just a few clicks to that whole group. So that's one way that we can push out learning, and then we can also pull in reports about those people too, or that with those roles. So the site admin is one of those that's done kind of special that way. There are also a couple system roles that are done at the system level. So that's very similar. You go to users, permissions, assign system roles. And they happen to be the site manager, course creator, and staff manager. So we have one course creator in our demo site, and that's Sue. She's our instructional designer. But I could pick somebody and click add or remove people. So that means that they have that role throughout the whole site. And those roles are bigger than a course. Like a course creator means that they can create courses on the system. So that's why it's a system role. Other roles are done at the course level. So let's go into a course and just kind of see how that looks. If we go into my professional development, and I have a practice SCORM course where I was testing some SCORM, and I go to now anybody with these permissions, like a course designer, would have these course administration tools available, or the editing trainer would have these tools and a few other roles. They also have users, but these would be the users at the course level assigned. Okay, the other one was every user in a system. These are at the users that are enrolled in this specific practice SCORM course. So I go to course admin, users, enrolled users. And then I have a list of who is in that course. Right now we just have one user, and here it shows what role he has in this course. So people can have multiple roles. Maybe he is a regional trainer, but he happens to be a learner in this course. Yeah, and you could be, maybe he's an instructor in another course. So you can have different roles. When you want to maybe change a role, and again, this can be automated through LDAP or from the HR import or Active Directory. There's so many ways we can automate things. But if you wanted to quickly manually do it, if you kind of hover over this area and click once, you could change to some of these other roles, and you could add that. If I wanted to delete learner, let's say, and make him a trainer, I could click the X and then add trainer. Now, when you're enrolling users, which again could be automated, but if you're doing it manually, you could do it from here. This is one way you can do it. And up here, it has the different roles that happen at a course level. And I could say, okay, right now, we don't have an editing trainer, so we're going to add Miles as the editing trainer. And we'll go down here, and we're done enrolling. And now see how it says that Dr. Bailey is a learner and Miles Bailey is an editing trainer. Okay, I'm just going to check and see if we have any questions so far. You guys are a quiet group. No worries if you don't. And again, if you think of them later, let me know. Just it sometimes helps if people have specific use cases that they're interested in. Okay, so that's kind of how we can manage roles in the system and permissions that people have. Now, there are so many things that can be assigned to a learner or a person in the system. One is their permissions on that system, what role they have. Like a HR person might be a site manager, and maybe an IT person has a site admin rights, and a learner maybe only has rights to take a course. And an instructional designer might be a course manager. So different people have these different roles. And we can push learning and we can pull it out that way too. There are other ways that we can organize people and other ways that we can assign them to different things in your organization. And when I onboard and support a new client, one of the first questions that I always like to ask is, what reports do you need and who needs to see them? Because that tells me what kinds of things we need to set up. And I call this looking under the hood of Totara. One of the things that's interesting to me about the Totara LMS system is that it's hierarchical in nature. It has these hierarchies, and other LMSs don't run quite this way. And this makes it very customizable to your organization. So if you are a site administrator, you can go to your site admin tools. And again, we just went over roles and who has permissions for different things. And there is an area in their tool set called hierarchies. And there are several hierarchies. And to me, the hierarchies are the underlying engine that runs the system in terms of how we can push learning and how we can pull it. It also is the key in personalizing the platform to your organization. So once I know the answer of what kinds of reports do you need and who needs to see them, that gives me a lot of information on how your hierarchies need to be set up. And usually I start out with the organizational hierarchy. And you can have an organization. You can have various frameworks. You can have more than one. So let's say you're a holding company and you have 3 or 4 other companies under you and you have one Totara LMS. You could have a framework for each company that you're a holding company for. Most organizations I work with would have one framework, but I have a couple clients that have more than one. And employees would be assigned to the correct framework, okay? And so let's just go to a school district. I think that most of us have gone to school, so we know how school districts are organized. And this is very unique to each organization. So I have a district office. And then in that district office, we might have an accounting department, a human resources department, maybe the superintendent's office, the curriculum department, and a buildings and ground or janitorial department. And they all reside and work at district office. And then maybe at the high school, we have the teaching staff and the administration staff. And then maybe we have various other schools. You can have this set up in any way that you want. Notice how this is sort of nested, or like this is the parent and this is the child. You can have as many subcategories and categories as you want. So this is limitless. You can just have it as deep as you want. The reason that you want to do this is that you want it so that when you assign people, they're going to be assigned to where they work in the organization. So I might be in the human resources department, for example. Then I'm also in the district office group. So what this means is if I had some new employee training that's required, maybe about insurance that human resource staff needs to know, I could push it to this group. Okay, so when it comes to setting up certificates or programs or courses or face-to-face learning or assigning competencies, I can assign things to any of the groups that I set up. So the more detailed this is, the more you can push learning to certain groups, okay? And so, you know, it is worth your time in the setup to set this up. To set up things, we can go to bulk actions and you can add, and then you can decide what level. So if I wanted under accounting, I wanted bookkeeping, you know, let's just do that, and this will be a third level then, or child of accounting. Then I can go here and now see how that works. So if I just wanted to push out to bookkeepers, if I wanted accounting, it could go that way. This is also important for reporting. So if I wanted a report for people, everybody working in district office, if they did a certain compliance training, I could pull a report on all of the people and all of the sub-levels that are people that are assigned to any of these places in an organization. One other thing that I should mention, if we're going to automate things, okay, you will, let's say we're going to have things come over for Alta Pro, for instance. You would need an organizational ID number that can be alphanumeric, and it would need to match the number that's in Ultra Pro. And our system integration specialist can help with that. If you're not automating it, you would not need an ID number, okay? But that's just kind of an important thing that all matches up. That's kind of ID numbers are how we get things back and forth between systems, so I should mention that too. So that would be step one of how I would start organizing my platform to push and pull things to different groups. The other thing that I highly recommend doing is the position hierarchy. And in here, I would go to manage positions, and it's very similar. You know, I might have like here I have a framework for school, and again you can have multiple frameworks. We might have a district admin, school admin, teacher, student, and that's a little bit different than the department. You know, in a department like the accounting department, you might have CPAs, you might have bookkeepers, you might have an accountant, okay? And they might have different competencies for their jobs. Like a CPA is quite a bit different than a bookkeeper. And you might assign different competencies. But yet you might want the entire accounting department to go to a training. So that's why we first map like where they are in the organization, and then we add all of the positions. And it works pretty similarly to the organization. Then after we do that, I usually have them add the competencies, okay? And you can have as many competency frameworks as you want, and they can be very discrete or very big. So, for example, I have one here on the phone system, and I want all new employees to take that, and we might set up an audience of all new employees, and the system would know new employees, and it would assign these competencies to them, okay? But I also might have competencies by a position, and those might be assigned not to everybody, but the people that have that position. Okay, so that's why I like to map out first the departments or areas of the organizational hierarchy, and then the positions, and then we can start assigning competencies to different places. Now, right now, the competencies are not assigned. I mean, they are in my system, but this isn't where that gets done. This is where we just write the competencies or upload them, and each line is a competency. So you would put your competencies here, or your frameworks here. Under here, you can create scales of how they will be rated, okay? And you can add a new scale, and have your own criteria or values listed. Okay, and you just put one per line, and you would name that something. And you can determine in different places what scale is. So right now, we have a yes, no, and we have a competency one that's being used. So the competency one is out of the box, and it says competent, competent with supervision, or not competent. But you can make your own scale and your own descriptors if you want to, and use that in the system. Okay, so then there are so many places that competencies can be assigned. Probably the most common would be to attach it to learning. So here I have my Practice SCORM course. And in the course admin, we can start assigning competencies. Let's say these, and I have all my competency frameworks here that would go with this course. And I could say that that if and if it's optional or mandatory, okay, but then I could also say what constitutes course completion, and we could say that they maybe have to do these activities and they have to complete them successfully. And then what we can do is assign which activities measure certain competencies, like maybe a quiz or a SCORM package that they have to do questions in will link to certain competencies. And what can happen here is activity completion. Just lost it for a minute. Show okay. Yeah. And we can, let's see, let's just real quickly, we can put a competency, I think, maybe I'm wrong, thought we could do it at the activity level. Okay, it must be just at the course level. So we could say that if they successfully complete this course, and each activity has different completion tracking, then they are awarded those competencies. That's one way that they could get a competency. You could also assign competencies at the review workflow. So if I'm looking at my team, here we can assign competencies. We could look at Dr. Smith, and I want to go to her, okay, in her appraisal, which would be her review, we would start to see how she was rated and which ones she had done and which she had not done. And then a learner too, they have like a transcript of their record of learning, which their manager can see, and we can run reports on. And the competencies also show up here. And because I'm a site admin, I also have the rights of an assessor. But we could, if I was her supervisor, I can also do this through observation. A lot of these maybe were met in classes that were taken, and it was tied to learning activities. So there are so many places that competencies can be added and tracked, okay? But the beginning piece of it, I would say for competencies, is going to this hierarchy and putting in your competencies. Then I think part 2 of competencies is asking where and how will that competency be measured. And then we could add it to a course. We could add it to a learning plan. We could add it to an appraisal. So it can go in, we could add it to a certification or a program of learning or a webinar, and how will they demonstrate that? And it could also be that maybe they have to upload evidence, or they have to have an assessor mark it as complete. Maybe it was observation, or it was part of the appraisal process, and their supervisor is marking it off. So once the competencies are in the system, they can be assigned in multiple places and multiple ways and tracked that way. And then the competencies can be, when we go to the report builder, we can pull competency reports and see, you know, who's competent in different things, or did everybody meet their competency goals, or we can see by learner where they are with their competencies. So that it's very, very flexible and can do a variety of things. Any questions so far? That's kind of what we made all 3 bullet points today. The second one is, do you need to map to a hierarchical structure of your organization? For example, departments, regions, positions, groups, audiences. An audience can be a group of learners, let's say new employees, okay? And maybe to help, I know there's very hard to understand at first. That's why I think these multiple webinars are very helpful. But if we go to a user and look at their profile, you can start to see, let's go to Miles Bailey, because I know we've used him as a demo user. These are all, we'll go to Michael Weber. Okay, and we'll view his profile here. It all kind of links throughout the profile, so it shows different things, like what courses he's in. But if we go to positions, we can see his primary position. So all this gets, this is how it links, and this is where it pushes and pulls. If we want to choose a position, we can just go to the right framework, and now he's in there. We can choose where he's going to be in an organization. I think I want to actually do Northwest Region. Let's do that instead. So, and it would know he's part of Roadrunner Markets because that was a sub one. I'm his manager. We can choose the person that will be doing his review. If somebody is maybe out on maternity or leave or something, we can have a temporary manager if you wanted to. And when that temporary manager will expire, and we can update all that information, and that is all tracked and part of their profile now. And that is how it pushes and pulls what users go to what learning and go in what reports, so that that all gets tied that way. Again, our system integration specialists, we can have this all syncing up to other systems that you might use if you have an HR system or an Active Directory, so that you don't have to manually go in and do all of these things all the time either, which is something that I highly recommend that people consider doing, and most of our clients do some form of automation. Any other questions for me? It's been a quiet group. Again, if you're one of the people that signed up and is watching the archive and you come up with questions, feel free to forward those to me. I'd be happy to help you out. We can even jump on a webinar together and look at it together. Be happy to do that. One final thing, I'll tell you what other webinars are coming up. Today's was, we just, you know, there's so much to Totara that I like to do just little bite-sized pieces. So today we're just kind of getting our heads around competencies and organizational roles. I think the main point that I was hoping the audience would get is that by setting these up, you can tie it to learning and you can pull reports on them, but you can also give people different roles and permissions in the system. So those, and then this is very much tied into how we push out learning, what groups we can push it out to, and how we can pull reports. So those are very two important concepts that are important in the setup of your system. You can always do it later, but I think you get a lot more mileage if you're thinking about your system from the beginning in this way. Then on June 1st, we're going to talk about program management. So that's when you have a series of learning. It may be sequential. It may be out of order. Maybe there's three things that courses that somebody has to take before they can become a manager in their organization. You call that the manager program. We'll also talk about certifications. That might be like a CPR certification, and maybe that renews every 2 years. And we need to grab the correct people, and we need to remind them when their certification is coming due and re-enroll them. And the system can do all of that automatically. And then sounds very similar but a little bit different. You could have an online certificate of completion right in the system, and the system can track that, and then they can get their certificate. So there's just a lot of things that we'll be talking about, how to manage the learning, how to manage programs of learning on June 1st. So that might be a good one. These next two are for a lot of different online learnings, but what are some of the things that you need to do to help all learners succeed? And you know, maybe there's visual impairments, maybe hearing impairments, reading impairments, second language impairments, things that you can do that would make your courses more universally accessible and more friendly for a diverse audience. Okay, so we'll be going over that and how to improve your courses for that. In some sectors like higher ed, a lot of these things are by law required, and more laws are coming, so it's good to kind of check your courses and make sure you're in compliance with those things. And then this would be popular for everybody too, especially instructional designers. More and more I'm coming across some very cool ways to make movies that are free and inexpensive and don't take a lot of time. And so people that want recordings, or you're trying to generate a lot of learning quickly, I think that would be useful too. That's on May 25th. We also welcome suggestions. We get a lot of ideas from our audiences of what you would like us to do webinars on. We really enjoy doing these and connecting with you. So please feel free to email me suggestions for webinars too. Always looking for those. With that, I thank you very much for attending. I will send the archive to all of those people that were unable to attend live but were interested. And again, any questions you have, feel free to send them my way. So thanks so much.